The deep woods of the Canadian Shield, the vast isolation of the Brazilian Amazon, the cold, churning waters off the coast of Nova Scotia, these are the final frontiers, the places where human technology gives way to something ancient and utterly unknown. These incidents prove that the UAP phenomenon is not merely passive observation. It is a global, active presence capable of causing physical harm, neutralizing our defenses, and aggressively pursuing contact on its own terrifying terms. The narrative of aggressive contact begins in the remote wilderness of Manitoba, Canada, with a man who was simply doing his job. It was the 20th of May, 1967. Stefan Michalak, a geological prospector and a man of sober reputation, was scouting near Falcon Lake. The day was quiet until he was drawn to the sounds of honking geese and a sudden, intense smell like sulfur mixed with burnt electrical wiring. He approached a rocky outcropping and was stunned to see two oval, glowing objects sitting nearby. One ascended silently and vanished instantly. The other, however, remained, radiating an intense light. Michalak described the craft as having a smooth, metallic surface and a dome on top. Driven by curiosity, Michalak approached the craft. He noticed a door open in the side, revealing an intense light and strange muffled voices inside. He yelled out, asking in several languages if they needed assistance, but received no coherent response. He reached out to touch the smooth metallic surface and found it intensely hot, drawing his hand back instantly. The hook and the true terror arrived seconds later. As Michalak backed away, the craft began to rotate rapidly. A strange grid-like vent on the side of the object suddenly opened, and a violent, searing blast of extremely hot air and gas hit Michalak directly in the chest. Hey friends! You're in Dreamcatcher Stories, your cozy corner for stories that got lost along the way. Tell me, where are you watching from? And what time is it there for you? Hit me up in the comments and tell me how this one hits you. Now, let's get sneaky and peek behind the curtain. The intense thermal shock knocked Michalak backward, setting his shirt on fire and causing immediate, severe burns. The object then lifted off and vanished in seconds. Michalak stumbled back to his hotel, violently ill, suffering from massive headaches, nausea, and disorientation. When doctors examined him, they found a strange, unique burn pattern on his chest and abdomen, a series of neat, grid-like burns corresponding exactly to the vent he had described on the object. The metal of the area where the object had landed was later found to be radioactive. The physical evidence of the Falcon Lake incident, the burns, the sickness, the radioactive trace, makes it one of the few UAP encounters where a human being suffered a tangible, measurable injury directly from an alleged craft, confirming that this was not a peaceful intelligence. The year of 1967 proved to be one of profound global UAP activity. Just 5 months after the Falcon Lake injury, the phenomenon struck the Atlantic coast of Canada in what remains one of the most credible naval recovery mysteries. On the night of the 4th of October 1967, dozens of citizens, including a police officer, watched as a large, bright, structured object descended rapidly into the sea near Shag Harbor, Nova Scotia. The object, estimated to be 60 feet in length, splashed down violently, and witnesses reported seeing strange yellow lights flickering on the surface before the object submerged and began moving slowly underwater. The military response was immediate. The Royal Canadian Navy, RCN, and Coast Guard launched an intense search and recovery operation. The climax of the Shag Harbor incident is simple. The military spent days diving and searching the seabed. Navy divers later gave anonymous testimony confirming they were searching for a structured, metallic object, not a weather balloon or a lost plane. The recovery operation concluded without a public finding, but the intense, immediate, and sustained naval presence confirmed that a non-terrestrial object had crashed into Canadian territorial waters, and its retrieval was deemed a matter of national secrecy. If Shag Harbor was about retrieval, the Varginha incident in Brazil was about capture. In January 1996, the world's attention shifted to Varginha, Minas Gerais, Brazil, following a series of events that began with a reported UFO crash and culminated in the alleged military capture of non-human entities. The climax of the Varginha case began on the morning of January 20, when several young women reported seeing a strange, injured creature crouched in a field. They described it as small, about 5 feet tall, with huge, deep red eyes, dark, oily skin, and 3 horns or bumps on its head. The creature was reportedly weak and smelled strongly of ammonia. The twist was the immediate, full-scale military and scientific response. Within hours, the Brazilian military police and the army descended upon Varginha. Multiple eyewitnesses, including local police and firefighters, claimed they saw military units capturing multiple creatures, some injured, some alive, and transporting them under heavy guard in military vehicles. One police corporal, Marco Eli Cherezi, who allegedly helped capture one of the injured entities, died mysteriously soon after, further fueling the conspiracy theories. The official explanation, predictably, was a complete denial, claiming the creature was merely a local man with mental disabilities who was covered in mud. But the sheer volume of corroborating testimony from dozens of separate, highly credible military and civilian sources confirms that the entity capture that shook Brazil remains one of the most significant and chilling cases of physical creature recovery in UAP history. The aggression escalated dramatically in the Amazonian region of Brazil during 1977. This is the frightening saga of the Colares Island incident, where UAPs became known as Chupa Chupa suckers. The phenomenon began not with a silent object, but with direct physical attacks on the isolated island population near the city of Colares. For several months, witnesses reported seeing small, luminous objects, some described as having structured shapes, others as balls of intense light descending rapidly. The main conflict was the UAP's terrifying modus operandi. They would focus a thin, powerful beam of light on an isolated individual. Witnesses described feeling a sudden, intense heat and sharp pain, often resulting in temporary paralysis. The physical consequences were horrific. Victims were found with puncture wounds, burns, and showed symptoms of severe anemia, as if their blood or energy had been physically drained. The terror became so widespread that the local government launched Operation Prato, Operation Plate, a military investigation to study the phenomena. Military personnel documented the chaotic situation, confirming the presence of structured UAPs and the widespread physical harm being inflicted on the population. The climax arrived when the military itself, after months of surveillance, captured incredible footage of the objects. Operation Prato was eventually closed by the Brazilian Air Force with all data classified, but the legacy of the Chupa Chupa attacks remains. A sustained, aggressive, non-human entity that treated an entire island population as its biological testing ground. We conclude this global tour of non-permissive contact in the high Andes, returning to the concept of technological superiority with the modern Coyhaique, Chile incident of 2014. The setting was a vast, remote wilderness region in southern Chile, where a highly skilled helicopter pilot, along with a technician, were conducting routine aerial surveys. The pilot noticed an object performing maneuvers that were visually striking, moving erratically, stopping instantly, and moving against the wind at incredible speeds. The pilot immediately informed the DGAC, Chile's Directorate General of Civil Aeronautics, the civilian body responsible for tracking and authenticating UAP sightings, Chile's highly professional version of the FAA. The DGAC confirmed the UAP on radar and began a methodical, scientific investigation. The twist in this modern case is the absolute lack of technological explanation. The investigation found that the object was moving at approximately 150 miles per hour, but it performed impossible maneuvers without showing any heat signature, conventional propulsion, or noise. Crucially, the DGAC officially ruled out all possibilities: drones, weather balloons, meteorological phenomena, and conventional aircraft. Their final authoritative conclusion was that the UAP was a highly anomalous object, with physical characteristics that placed it beyond current known technology. The Koi Hike incident serves as a powerful, modern confirmation that the phenomena seen in the American wilderness are being tracked globally, and that when studied by rigorous, non-military aviation experts, the conclusion is always the same. Something intelligently controlled is operating in our airspace that we cannot explain, cannot intercept, and cannot identify. These 5 non-U.S. incidents, from the painful radiation burns in Canada and the physical aggression in the Amazon to the military capture of entities in Varginha, firmly establish the terrifying nature of the UAP phenomenon. This is not a passive mystery. It is an active technological force that leaves behind physical scars, destroyed evidence, and the inescapable realization that when this intelligence decides to operate on our planet, we are utterly defenseless. And there we go. Another memory back from the dark. Don't go too far. I've got more mysteries itching to be told. Which of these physical interactions is the most concerning? The sustained, systematic aggression of the Chupa Chupa attacks in Colares, or the targeted, instantaneous technological shutdown of military systems like in the Malmstrom incident? Malmstrom was covered earlier, but is thematically linked. Let me know your analysis in the comments below. And if you dare to explore more high-stakes secrets and global unexplained phenomena, be sure to subscribe to Dreamcatcher Stories and hit that notification bell. Until next time, stay safe and think critically about the shadows. The true mystery is not only what they are, but why they continue to appear in our most sensitive airspace, delivering cryptic warnings and baffling our most advanced military minds. These 5 global encounters, from the physical traces in French lavender fields and the medical tragedy in Texas to the military capture of entities in Varginha, underscore a terrifying reality. The UAP phenomenon is not random. It is intelligent, physical, global, and utterly non-permissive. It dictates the terms of engagement, leaving behind scars, scientific paradoxes, and the profound, enduring mystery of who is truly in control of our planet's skies. The realization that we are fundamentally defenseless is cemented when we look back at the history of these incursions, where these aerial intruders have repeatedly breached our most secured airspaces and neutralized our very centers of power. We begin this final historical sweep not with a solitary sighting, but with a massive aerial spectacle that demonstrated their technological mastery over our most sensitive zones. The summer of 1952 was hot in Washington, D.C., but the skies were hotter. Over 2 consecutive weekends in July, the nation's capital experienced the most intense, verifiable wave of UAP sightings in its history. The objects, described as brilliant, fast-moving lights, appeared directly over the White House, the Capitol building, and the Pentagon, the most heavily restricted airspace in the world. The main conflict was the absolute humiliation of the Air Force. The UAPs were tracked simultaneously by multiple civilian and military radar installations at Washington National Airport and Andrews Air Force Base. When Air Force F-94 interceptor jets were scrambled to investigate, the UAPs simply vanished from radar or performed impossible maneuvers. suddenly reversing direction or accelerating far beyond the jet's capabilities. The climax arrived when the Air Force called the largest press conference since World War II, attempting to quell the hysteria by claiming the radar echoes were merely temperature inversions. However, the pilots, air traffic controllers, and intelligence officers who witnessed the event both visually and on their screens knew they had been completely outmatched by something non-human. The Washington, D.C. sightings proved early on that these objects had the capability and the audacity to penetrate and dominate the highest security airspace on the planet. We move back to the American South for a case of physical interference that shut down technology across an entire region. This is the Levelland sightings in Texas, 1957. On the night of November 2, multiple residents across Levelland and nearby towns, including police officers, reported seeing a large, oblong, luminous object moving low and fast. The conflict Utama, main conflict, wasn't just the visual sighting, it was the electromagnetic effect. Motorists who encountered the UAP reported that the engines of their cars suddenly died. Their headlights and radios instantly went out, and they were left stranded in the dark. As the object moved away, the vehicle engines would suddenly sputter back to life. A local police officer who was investigating the initial reports also had his car engine die instantly when he approached the object. The twist here is the physical evidence of energy manipulation. The Levelland sightings provide one of the strongest historical examples of UAPs demonstrating the ability to manipulate and shut down conventional electrical and combustion systems across a wide geographical area, proving a high level of technological control over fundamental human infrastructure. Before the Washington, D.C. panic, another mass sighting in Texas set the stage for how pervasive the phenomenon was. This is the Lubbock Lights incident of 1951. During the late summer, numerous academics, scientists, and highly respected civilians in Lubbock, Texas, reported seeing large, fast-moving formations of lights in the night sky. The lights were organized into a distinct V-shape or crescent formation and moved silently at incredible speed. The phenomenon achieved a major climax when a young student managed to capture a sequence of 4 black and white photographs showing the lights in formation, one of the earliest and clearest pieces of photographic evidence of structured UAP formations. The Air Force's official scientific analysis concluded that the objects were likely migrating birds, reflecting city lights, an explanation that was immediately rejected by the witnesses, who included a respected professor who had personally tracked the objects. The Lubbock Lights proved that these structured formations were being tracked visually and photographically years before the mass panic of 1952. The phenomenon is not exclusive to the Cold War West. Its presence was also deeply felt behind the Iron Curtain. This brings us to the Voronezh landing, Russia of 1989. In September 1989, the Soviet news agency TASS reported an extraordinary event in the city of Voronezh. A large, reddish sphere had landed in a public park. The report, which came directly from the state-controlled media, involved numerous eyewitnesses, including children and adults. The main conflict was the entity report and the political context. Witnesses described seeing tall, three-eyed entities emerge from the craft, accompanied by a small floating device that resembled a robot. This was not a rumor. This was reported by Pravda and TASS, signifying official acknowledgement by the Soviet system, a massive political twist. The investigation included medical teams examining the children, who showed high levels of fear and physiological stress. The Voronezh landing remains one of the most significant entity reports outside of Western documentation, confirming that the UAP phenomenon and the entities associated with it transcended all global political and ideological boundaries. We close with a near disaster that demonstrated the danger these objects pose to commercial air travel. This is the Kekrops incident over Brazil, 1977. In October 1977, the pilot and crew of a domestic Brazilian airliner, VASP Flight 169, were suddenly alerted to the presence of two powerful, brilliant white objects following their plane. The objects were visually confirmed and tracked by multiple ground radars. The pilot reported that the objects flew in tight formation with the airliner for over 30 minutes. The climax of the incident occurred when one of the objects suddenly sped up and performed a dangerous, high-speed pass extremely close to the airliner, causing massive turbulence that rocked the commercial plane and terrified the passengers. The objects then suddenly vanished from radar. The investigation confirmed that the objects were tracked at speeds up to 1,500 miles per hour, far exceeding any conventional aircraft. The Kekrops incident is a stark reminder that UAPs are not just a military concern. They are an active threat to civil aviation, demonstrating a willful disregard for human safety and sovereignty in shared airspace. These 15 incidents, ranging from the military chaos over the White House to the disabling of car engines in Legoland and the terrorization of commercial flights, prove that the UAP phenomenon is a historical constant. It is intelligent, technologically dominant, and deeply integrated into the security and infrastructure of our planet. The true mystery is not locating the objects, but understanding the agenda of the intelligence that controls them. And there we go, another memory back from the dark. Don't go too far, I've got more mysteries itching to be told. Which of these high-security intrusions is the most unsettling? The neutralization of nuclear missiles at Malmstrom covered earlier, or the complete control demonstrated over the US Capitol's airspace in the D.C. sightings? Let me know your analysis in the comments below. And if you dare to explore more hidden government secrets and global unexplained phenomena, be sure to subscribe to Dreamcatcher Stories and hit that notification bell. Until next time, stay safe and think critically about the shadows. The true mystery is not only what they are, but why they continue to appear in our most sensitive airspace, delivering cryptic warnings and baffling our most advanced military minds. These 15 incidents, ranging from the military chaos over the White House to the disabling of car engines in Legoland and the terrorization of commercial flights, prove that the UAP phenomenon is a historical constant. It is intelligent, technologically dominant, and deeply integrated into the security and infrastructure of our planet. To truly comprehend this global agenda, we must look beyond the immediate skies and acknowledge that these intelligences are not confined to the air. They operate across all domains, diving into the depths of our oceans and stretching back across centuries of human history. We begin this final survey not in the air, but in the deepest, least explored part of our world, the sea. The UAP phenomenon often transitions into USOs, unidentified, submerged objects, confirming the transmedium capability that shocked the Nimitz pilots. Multiple naval and civilian witnesses globally have reported immense, structured objects moving silently and at impossible speeds beneath the waves. Submarine commanders and sonar operators have tracked objects moving in controlled patterns that defy known hydrodynamics, traveling hundreds of knots without cavitation noise. One particularly disturbing pattern emerges from the US Navy's archives, where reports detail objects suddenly decelerating from speeds in the atmosphere and diving directly into the ocean. The main conflict here is the realization that the deepest, most secure parts of our planet, the global oceans, may in fact serve as the home base or primary area of operation for these intelligences, making their appearance in our skies merely a temporary excursion. This profound maritime mystery confirms that our lack of knowledge extends far beyond the atmosphere. We travel back to the dawn of the UAP phenomenon in the U.S., to a sighting that gave early credibility to the structured nature of the objects. This is the Chile's Whitted sighting of 1948. On July 24, veteran Eastern Airlines pilots Clarence Chiles and John Whitted were flying a commercial route over Montgomery, Alabama. In the late hours, they were violently startled when a massive cigar-shaped object approached their DC-3 airliner at incredible speed. The conflict Utama, main conflict, was the near miss. Chiles reported the object was twice the size of their own plane, featured 2 rows of windows, and emitted a deep, reddish-orange glow. Crucially, the object briefly deployed a brilliant, visible flame from its rear before pulling up sharply and vanishing into the clouds. The pilots' detailed, coherent testimony and the fact that they were highly trained, experienced professionals cemented the idea that these UAPs were not just lights, but solid, structured vehicles capable of extreme speed and precision maneuvering near commercial air traffic. The threat to air defenses intensified near NATO's most sensitive sites years before Rendlesham. We look at the Lakenheath Bentwaters incident of 1956. This incident is the perfect historical prequel to Rendlesham. Over several nights in August 1956, military radar operators and pilots at the RAF Lakenheath and Bentwaters air bases in the UK tracked multiple fast-moving UAPs. The climax arrived when a massive, structured object, estimated to be several hundred feet long, was visually sighted by airmen and tracked by multiple ground radar installations. When an F-86 Sabre jet was scrambled to intercept, the pilot reported that the object simply accelerated away, performing impossible turns. The UAP later shadowed the interceptor jet before performing a vertical ascent out of radar range. The case, heavily documented by the U.S. Air Force, confirmed that UAPs were actively engaging and outmaneuvering NATO's aerial defenses years before the public was even aware of the scale of the intrusion. The phenomena's ability to interfere with massive infrastructure was demonstrated in Canada during the Falcon Bridge encounter of 1974. The main witness, a security guard named Stephen Michalak, no relation to the Falcon Lake witness, was on duty near the Dease Island Tunnel on the Fraser River in British Columbia, which involves a massive suspension bridge infrastructure. Michalak observed a brilliant, oval-shaped UAP hovering silently near the bridge. The twist came when the UAP descended slightly, causing the engine of the security truck Michalak was using to die instantly. The lights on the bridge itself flickered violently and dimmed. As the object moved away, all electrical power instantly restored itself. The Falcon Bridge encounter serves as compelling evidence that UAPs can project focused energy or electromagnetic interference to disable large-scale infrastructure, not just isolated cars, demonstrating their control over vital human systems. We conclude this vast historical sweep by looking back at one of the largest mysteries in human history, often debated as an atmospheric UAP explosion. The Tunguska event of 1908. On the 30th of June 1908, a massive explosion occurred over the remote Podkamennaya Tunguska River in Siberia. The blast flattened over 2,000 square kilometers of forest, about 80 million trees with an energy yield estimated to be equivalent to 10 to 15 megatons of TNT. The main conflict is the perpetual scientific mystery. No impact crater was ever found, leading to theories that whatever exploded did so in the atmosphere. While the scientific consensus leans toward a meteor or comet, the UAP community points to bizarre anomalies. Rapid changes in magnetic fields observed globally, and reports from indigenous people of a bright, cylindrical object descending before the massive explosion. Some fringe theories suggest the blast was the result of a non-terrestrial propulsion system exploding or a large UAP sacrificing itself to prevent a far worse impact. The twist is that the lack of a conventional impact site keeps the door open to the UAP theory. Tunguska remains the world's largest confirmed atmospheric explosion, a catastrophic event that stretches the timeline of UAP activity far back into modern history, confirming that these objects can interact with our planet on a planetary, destructive scale. These 20 combined incidents, from the mysterious wreckage of Roswell to the transmedium intelligence operating in our oceans, chart a complete picture of an intelligent, technologically superior presence. This force does not ask for permission. It controls the skies, the seas, and our vital infrastructure, ensuring that the question of who is truly in control of our planet remains terrifyingly open. And there we go, another memory back from the dark. Don't go too far, I've got more mysteries itching to be told. Which historical case best proves the intelligence of the UAPs? The avoidance maneuvers over the White House in DC, 1952, or the purposeful disabling of all nuclear missiles at Malmstrom, 1967. Let me know your analysis in the comments below. And if you dare to explore more hidden government secrets and global unexplained phenomena, be sure to subscribe to Dreamcatcher Stories and hit that notification bell. Until next time, stay safe and think critically about the shadows.